Hi there. My name is Luca,
My name is Andrew.
and today is the first episode of our first ever podcast, Deep Cuts.
That's right, Luca. What are we going to be doing in this podcast?
Well, it's funny you ask, Andrew, because I have the exact answer to that question. In Deep Cuts, what we're going to be doing is going over a subject, one subject per episode, that we know a little bit about, a lot about, not anything about, and that's about it.
That sounds great, Luca. So, for the viewers at home, every single time we do one of these, we're going to get one specific subject and do a deep dive into it, get some history, get some fun facts, get some deep cuts, if you will, and help teach each other about these subjects and teach anybody who listens to this podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I think that's about it, and I think we're ready to hop right into the theme song.
All right, theme song brought to you by One Fleece.
Hermit, I am so embarrassed.
All right, so Luca, why don't you tell me what the topic is today?
Well, Andrew, today we're going to be talking about the Muppets.
All right, and what are the Muppets?
Well, the Muppets are basically a group of puppets of some sort created by Jim Henson initially. And what made them so unique to Henson was that they were able to express certain emotions differently than other puppets with how he would use them. And the Muppets have gone on to create multiple films. The Muppet Show, of course, they were featured on Sesame Street, and some earlier incarnations and talk shows that Jim originally used for them.
All right, and why do you want to talk about the Muppets?
I want to talk about the Muppets because they're something I've always liked. And when it comes down to the Muppets, I've always had a pretty deep emotional connection with them. I watched the Muppets a lot with my dad and brother as a child. And I always really liked how they were able to express themselves and were able to create comedy in a very unique way that isn't often seen today. As the Muppets they don't have the same impact as they once did, I feel. So Andrew, what's your first ever connection with the Muppets? I'd love to know.
Well, I have to be honest. I only really have two ways that I know the Muppets. The first way is by watching. I don't even know the movie's name. It's the one with like the Muppet who whistles and is also a man.
That's The Muppets, 2011 release.
Sorry, the 2011 release of The Muppets. And the other way that I know them is by watching videos online of Kermit the Frog either jumping off buildings and committing suicide or swearing at people on Omegle. So, other than that very peripheral knowledge of the Muppets, I don't really have that much to say.
That's all right. That's what we're here. I'm trying to educate you on the topic. Lots of people tell me this isn't a topic that requires research. I have to disagree. The Muppets are a very important piece of pop culture and of just film history and TV history in general.
You're a man who's done his research then.
I don't know if I'd say I know a decent amount, but just from peripheral research. I'm no expert on them, but I do love the Muppets. But Andrew, what would you say your favorite Muppet is?
That's an excellent question, Luca. As a man who knows very little about the Muppets, let's go with Animal. Yeah,
Animal. He's pretty crazy. I like him too. I don't know. I think I'd have to say I don't know what my favorite Muppet is. I'm kidding. I don't even know. I love them all so much.
If you were to be asked, what would you say?
If I was to be asked what my favorite Muppet was, I'd have to say it's hard. I like Pepe the King Prawn a lot. He's a bit of a
They're the King Prawn Muppet.
yeah. He's a bit more obscure. He's got like this accent. He says like, "Hey, Miss Piggy," kind of like that type of thing. I feel like you don't really get who Pepe is. And I'll show you who Pepe is after, but yeah, he's basically this King Prawn who he likes the ladies. He's very funny, but he was like a later inclusion to the Muppets.
Okay. Okay. Why don't you go ahead and get us started with the history of who these guys are?
All right, I guess I could start that. This is a bit of a long story, so everyone buckle in, get your popcorn out. Get your drinks out, and I'll start it up. So the Muppets themselves are created by Jim Henson. Jim Henson was an aspiring film creator. He really liked set design initially, and puppetry wasn't initially his thing. He always looked at what happened behind the scenes in films and loved to work on sets. And eventually he got some work on multiple small shows just as a set designer and tried his hands at puppetry a few times. And though he didn't really initially like it, he kind of found a new passion for it through his small endeavors.
And whenabouts was this?
This is about, I could be completely wrong with this, but I'm going to say this was the 50s when this is directly before he was in college. And after that point, he went to college to study kind of arts. There wasn't really a set design course at that time. He eventually went into home economics, actually, where he took a puppetry course and was what actually kind of built that love for puppetry for him. And in college, he met a fellow puppeteer who would later go on to be his wife, named Jane. And it was kind of a big turning point when he got a spot on The Tonight Show, where him and his wife would write and direct their own Muppet shows together. And they had been working on another show called Sam and Friends, which was a short 5-minute sketch that would come on TV sporadically. It actually featured the first prototype of Kermit the Frog and was what lots of people think is one of the first appearances of the Muppets in general. And the show was pretty loved initially.
And what would that show be about? Like
Sam and Friends. It's hard to say. It was a series of like 5-minute sketches, right?
Yeah.
And it was basically just puppets doing antics.
The antics being like domestic terrorism, like shopping, like what are we talking about for antics?
I mean, antics being, I don't know, bashing each other with a hammer or poking each other or joking around with each other. They were for kids, so they were appropriate.
Yeah.
But they were loved, yeah.
And what kind of like what networks would these antics appear on?
I don't remember actually. It wasn't ABC or NBC, but it was an offshoot of those. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember the exact network, to be honest. Moving on with that, Sam and Friends became very popular, and people really liked, as I talked about before, were that his Muppets could express more emotion. The way he was able to put his hand through the puppet and use the mouth, and to like crease the faces to express that emotion was really interesting to the viewers, and it really resonated with viewers of childlike and adult alike, is what was seen, and it was really interesting actually.
So the reason that they were so popular, you're saying, just because like he was able to bend their faces in a way that made it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm no expert puppeteer, but
You're not a puppet man.
I'm not a puppet master myself. But the puppets themselves were able to contort emotions in a way that had not been seen before, and that's what made them so special. Eventually, he got a spot on The Tonight Show, as I said, where his creations kind of gained widespread appeal, and they got their first shot in the limelight. They were shown to a much older audience, allowing them to gain that mainstream popularity, which was kind of crazy for something like puppets that had never been seen.
Was this during carpool karaoke on The Tonight Show?
There's probably something like that. James Corden probably went on and was like, "Hello, Jim. Hey, Kermit. Hey." And that's probably about what carpool karaoke with Jim Henson and Kermit the Frog was back then.
It's a deep cut right there.
That's a bit of a deep cut.
The first ever carpool karaoke was with the Muppets.
I'm pretty sure that's right. I might want to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Anyway, another thing that Henson did around this time was he did advertisements for companies, which would feature the Muppets and include them bashing each other with hammers, shooting each other in the head, all in the idea of promoting the sales of coffee. No, funnily enough, they weren't selling firearms, but coffee instead, which was really interesting. If you look these up, they were coffee advertisements, which were made to display the Muppets literally just attacking each other in the fight for commercial sales of coffee.
Okay. I'm not trying to respond to that, I'll be honest.
That's okay. I mean, once you see the episodes of these little skits, you'll understand what I'm talking about.
I'm kind of envisioning it with like the same kind of rapey French prawn guy you were talking about earlier, and it's just
It's not like that. No, it's like two Muppets who are just kind of attacking each other. That's basically what it is. It's all in good fun. They're shooting each other with cannons. They're shooting each other in the head. Sometimes one ends up dead at the end. But it's all in the good.
That's great fun.
All in the good fun of selling coffee.
And these were still children's products, or they were
No, this was coffee, right? So it was an advertisement that was just put on TV. Henson worked on these advertisements alongside his wife. And this was basically the start of Henson Productions, which they would use later on to produce pretty much everything they made. Him and his wife were like the 4 founders. They weren't married yet at this time, but him and Jane were working together.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, so the coffee advertisements were another way for Henson to put his Muppet creations in the mainstream. At the time, they were quite well seen, and people would see them on TV all the time because of these advertisements, right? Sam and Friends ended in the early 60s, but left a legacy for its witty humor and expressive puppetry, as I talked about before. And Henson, after finishing Sam and Friends, he wanted more. He wanted to do some stuff with puppetry that had never been done before. He was an innovator, right? So throughout the 60s, they continued to appear on those late-night talk shows, and like Ed Sullivan, a classic, and other mainstream popular shows. But he really wanted more, and he wanted to be featured on a full-time project that featured the Muppets primarily, not just as small skits.
Yeah.
This brings us to Sesame Street. And Andrew, have you ever watched Sesame Street?
Oh God, have I ever watched Sesame Street? I honestly don't think I have.
That is kind of crazy. I watched Sesame Street a lot as a kid, and I really liked it.
It shows.
What I liked most in particular was the use of the Muppet characters. Not Elmo, because I hate Elmo, because Elmo's not funny. He wasted way too much time on that show, and I'm not going to get on that rant. But Elmo, not funny.
Are you a Big Bird man?
I liked Big Bird. I liked Ernie and Bert in particular. I liked the Cookie Monster, Grover.
Can you give us a Count Dracula impression?
One. That's enough. Because Count Dracula was not created by Henson.
Oh,
So I'm not a big fan of him. But with this lady named Joanne Cooney, a pioneer of Sesame Street, wanted Henson to join her new show. And Jim agreed to be on the show because it was pushing the boundaries of children's television. It was showing mixed race, real life depictions of New York and what really went on in the world. And he thought it was a great way for children to be educated on just the diverse society we live on in this world. And the other term of him staying on the show was that he would remain the sole owner of the Muppets he created on this show, and that he would get, I think it was some portion of the merchandising rights from the Muppets he created.
Man wanted to make bank.
He wanted to make bank, but most of all, he cared about his creations and wanted them to be his.
Okay.
Because he would create these and they would have a long-standing impression on him. And at this time, he'd already created a few. Like I said, he created Kermit. He also created Ralph the dog, who, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ralph, but he's this pianist from the Muppet Show.
Is he now?
He's a dog. He's Ralph the dog. And really what he did in the show was he would show up, and he was one of the earliest scenes in the Muppets. Now, on Sesame Street, Henson continued to create characters and push the limits with what he did. Some of these characters were Ernie and Bert, the Cookie Monster, Oscar the Grouch, and the full buddy puppet. Not really a puppet, but there's like an actor in there. Big Bird. Are you familiar with Big Bird, Andrew?
I am well aware of Big Bird, again, from a similar vein of internet videos as the Kermit suicide.
Well, Andrew, let me tell you, Big Bird is nothing to be laughed at.
You have to put so much emphasis on the big and the bird.
I just like Big Bird a lot.
Okay.
Anyway, but when I was talking before about the Muppets who really resonated with me on the show, it was the Muppets who were created by Henson that resonated with me most of all, I found. Because the later things that were created after Henson had left the Muppets, like Elmo, like that little fairy girl who no one likes, really, I didn't like the fairy girl. I'm sorry. I wasn't a big fan. That's not. I don't think it's like that. But they didn't resonate with me as much as the other ones, and I would turn off the TV when I saw Elmo coming on. I only wanted Ernie and Bert. So Sesame Street really was this new frontier for Henson. And I think I should mention around now, there was another guy named Frank Oz, who worked along Henson, and he was kind of his right-hand man besides Jane. And he came to Henson Productions, and helped create different things. You might know Frank Oz. He was the puppet master for Yoda. He did the voice for Yoda. You've seen the Blues Brothers.
I have seen the Blues Brothers.
He's the guy at the beginning in the jail who gives Belushi all his stuff.
I have no.
He's like one used condom.
No, yeah, I that part stuck in my head because I was watching that with my mom and my dad for the first time at like 10 years old. And my mom was like, "Oh my god, it's a terrible program for the children," and my dad was just sitting there like laughing.
That's a great movie, actually. That could be a potential episode at some point. It is a very good show.
Hey, if you want to have your deep cuts exposed, go to www.deepcuts.fun.
And that's a real website. Do not worry. If you look it up, it definitely will not be some other domain that we have not purchased yet. But anyways, moving on. Henson stayed on Sesame Street, but eventually ended up leaving because he wanted more. He wanted something different. He wanted his own full-time show. And he stayed with Sesame Street in some respects. He let his characters still be used, and he would sporadically go back and help out. But the first talks of the Muppet Show actually began with one Michael Eisner. Are you familiar with Michael Eisner, Andrew?
I have never heard that name before in my life.
You don't know Michael Eisner. I'll tell you who he is. Basically, he was the man. He was originally at Paramount and was the big CEO there. But he eventually went to Disney. And Disney was experiencing some big issues then. This was when they were creating no films, The Rescuers Down Under. Have you seen that?
I have not. So when about was this?
So this was, I believe this was this was the 70s. So this is before this is before Eisner was at Disney. But I'm just giving you a bit of a background on who Eisner is. Eisner he went to Disney and he changed it for the better. He started the Renaissance, but it wasn't just him. There were lots of other people, but he was definitely a big guy on campus.
It's a different Renaissance from like the 17th century art movement.
This is the Disney Renaissance. Yeah. You've never heard of the Disney Renaissance?
I have not.
I'll briefly explain it.
Okay, thank you.
Films so it began with The Little Mermaid, and films like The Lion King.
That's a good movie.
Aladdin.
Also a good movie.
And many more.
Treasure Planet.
That was not the Disney Renaissance. That was considered the 2000s weird Disney thing. The Disney Renaissance ended with The Emperor's New Groove, which I think is a very good movie. But we're getting a bit off topic here.
Sorry.
The point was, Disney Renaissance.
Yeah.
It's a good topic you should research in your own time.
Or we can do it with Deep Cut. Go to Deep Cuts, www.deepcuts.fun.
Once again, that is a real website. We have purchased a domain. So, when Henson was in talks with Eisner, he created multiple pilots. The first one was a Valentine's Day special, which didn't feature too many of the Muppets we knew. They actually created the new Muppet to star in it. And it focused on just a Valentine's Day special with the Muppets. And there was a second pilot created called Muppets, Sex and Violence.
Sorry, this was immediately after Sesame Street?
Yeah, this is pretty quickly after Sesame Street. It was kind of while they were doing it, but Sex and Violence was considered a more adult one, and Henson wanted to gauge more of an adult audience for this program.
All right, I want to dig into that in just a second, but I think first we should pause this. Alrighty, so Luca, I want you to tell me more about Sex and Violence. That sounds hilarious.
So Muppets Sex and Violence was the second pilot created for the Muppets. And it was kind of an attempt to make the Muppets available for a more modern and older audience. It didn't really have much to do with Sex and Violence as far as I know. The name was just big, and Henson liked it. I might be wrong about that, but ultimately it was interesting. Henson definitely wanted to take a more adult turn, and you obviously really like the Muppets Sex and Violence name.
Well, I was going to say, because the most interesting thing for me about the Muppets in my peripheral knowledge is seeing the things like the Happy Time Murders sect, if that's what it's called. And like these kind of like children's toys being bastardized and used for a very adult purpose. I thought that was like a new thing after Henson died, but apparently this has been going on for like a while before that, am I right?
Yeah, I don't know. Henson, he was always pushing boundaries with what you could do with puppetry and creating weird puppet type things, if that makes any sense. It's a bad way of explaining it, but he was able to do it in a lot of different ways, and that's a pretty interesting factoid, if you will.
Or a deep cut.
As some people like to call it. Yeah, it's a deep cut.
But like honestly, just like before we move on,
yeah.
Even just looking at like a photo of the man, he looks like the kind of guy who would make Muppet sex happen.
It was interesting.
Or puppet sex, rather.
You look at him, and he as he got, so initially he's like this clean cut guy, and as it moves on, he gets like this beard, and he gets the long hair.
He looks like a sixth Beatle.
Yeah, he becomes more rustic. He's Ringo V2, Ringo version 2. But yeah, he seemed like a pretty cool guy. I didn't know him personally, obviously, but tragedy. He died a while before I was born. We'll get into that in a minute.
All right, so moving on from the sex and magic, blood, sex and magic, whatever it's.
Blood, Muppets and Blood, Sex and Magic.
That's a great album.
That is a great album by the Muppets, I believe, right? Yes.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Herman produced it. Yeah, sorry. After Blood, Sex and Magic, or Sex and Violence rather, what happened next for Jim Henson and the Muppets?
So they had trouble getting their show picked up. It was an issue. Even though Eisner was interested, they couldn't get it picked up. But around this time, they found another home on SNL.
Sorry, this is the Sex and Violence show they're trying to get picked up, or the Muppet Show itself?
The Muppet Show itself. Okay. Those were pilots, right?
Right.
So, yeah, the Muppet Show, that was his idea. He'd left Sesame Street, and he wanted his own show where he had creative enterprise, right, himself. And he began the production on that, but he couldn't find a home, so he went to SNL, which was a new home for his things. And was another stepping stone for Henson, because SNL was extremely popular at the time. It's not the weird stuff it is now with Elon Musk as Wario. I don't know. I don't like that.
It still makes good stuff. I don't know.
It depends, man.
It's got Pete Davidson. He's funny.
He's pretty funny.
You got like the newsboys. They read news.
I love the Newsboys, actually. My favorite part of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. All right, so sorry. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
When about was this, by the way?
So this was around, I want to say early to mid 70s was this period.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was on SNL for a while, but eventually ended up leaving because he enjoyed being on it, but once again, it was not his own, right? So they'd have these sketches where they'd have the Muppets, and they were definitely made for more adult audiences because it was SNL. But this was not what Henson wanted ultimately. He wanted his own show. He'd been on other shows before, and he wanted to move forward. So around the mid-70s, Henson's dream finally came true when he found a British investor in the United Kingdom. I don't think I could do that. That would go really poorly. Anyway, he got this British investor who would support him in this. He'd had a lot of trouble trying to find support, but he was going to England to film this show. So I don't know if you know that. The Muppets were filmed in England.
The Muppet Show.
Yeah, the show itself was filmed in England.
Cool.
Which is quite interesting. So it began its filming, but they had troubles finding celebrity. Because I don't know if you know this, Andrew, but
I do not.
Every episode of the Muppets Show, they have a human guest star who's assumedly famous.
Okay.
Some examples: Steve Martin, Elton John, Alice Cooper.
Oh yeah, classic.
I know you like Alice Cooper.
Classic for
the
children.
Kids love Alice Cooper.
Kids love. Dude's terrifying.
He's a bit of a scary guy. The Banana Boat guy, Harry Belafonte. You know that song?
Nope.
Daylight come and we want.
Oh, I do that song. Yeah.
It's like Beetlejuice, classic. So lots of different celebrities were on it, but they had trouble finding them initially in that first season. For the first two pilots, they had good guest stars, or they had it. Sorry, they had. I think they had a human guest star on one of them, and it worked well. So that's why they decided that would be the format of the show, and they decided it would be kind of a mock-up of like a Broadway show. And one of the original ideas Henson had was to create a Broadway show with Muppets, but that didn't end up happening.
By Broadway show, do you mean like a musical or what?
Yeah, so The Muppets features a lot of musical numbers.
Yeah.
Right? And the Muppet Show itself is like a musical performance in some ways. And he wanted to kind of make that, but in a show form.
And now, when you say musical performance, you don't mean like a musical, like a narrative structure, like Les Mis or something, do you?
No, I don't. I'm not really. There's at Disneyland, they have this kind of plaza called Muppet Plaza, and in there's a thing called Muppets 3D, where they have a show like that. It's like you're in the Muppets Theater and you're watching the Muppet Show. Yeah. And when you watch it, it's like it's kind of a Broadway show in ways, but it's got different sections that are very different.
So like a variety show.
Right. That's a perfect word for it. Variety show. Muppets Variety Show. Boom. That's a great way to put it, Andrew. But yeah, the Muppet Show began filming. They had trouble finding guest stars, but they managed to get it done. He had to call in some favors and close personal friends to come on. But they got a first season out, and the show led to the creation of a lot of puppets, or Muppets, as we call them in the Muppet Show.
Oh, of course. That's where the name comes from. Oh, whoa.
Did you realize that? Did you ever know that the Muppet Show is called the Muppet Show because there are Muppets in the show?
It's just crazy, man.
It's kind of crazy, actually. But there was... Miss Piggy was created for the show. Do you know Miss Piggy?
She's the one... Is she the one that, like, screams and goes like, "Oh, Kirby"?
Yeah, that's Miss Piggy. You know Miss Piggy.
I'm well aware of Miss Piggy.
Gonzo, Fozzie Bear, the Swedish Chef. You know the Swedish Chef? That's the Swedish Chef. Dr. Teeth in the Electric Mayhem.
Sorry?
That's the band. That's the Muppets Pit Band. We'll talk a bit more about them later on in the show. And many more. There was a lot of different guys created. We'll get more into the individual Muppets later on. So yeah, this series featured a lot of different guests and had recurring segments in it, like Pigs in Space, yep. Muppets Newsflash. And the show, yeah, basically parodied like a Broadway variety type show. Yeah, kind of like a cross between almost a circus in some ways and a Broadway show. Like you'd see different acts. And this show ran for 5 seasons and was met with critical acclaim. The first season was quite popular in the UK, but didn't quite meet like massive mainstream appeal in the US. But eventually it found its footing in the US with its later seasons and became a worldwide phenomenon. It could have been done forever, but Henson felt he'd rather the show end and not be stale than keep going like SNL.
So he stopped trying to make bank. Also, I want you to stop the slander of SNL.
I'm not a big SNL fan, guys. I'm sorry. Sorry to all my SNL fans. So the show ran from 1976 to 1981. And he just didn't want his career out of ideas, so he stopped making it. But during this time, there were 3 Muppet movies created and released. The Muppet movie, which focuses on the Muppets and how they met each other individually, which is a good one.
Or, as known in the UK, Muppet Origins.
Yeah, like X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Anyways, continue, please.
Batman Begins Muppets.
Muppets Begins. Yeah?
That's a good one. I like that one.
We could do a Batman.
We could do a Batman. Anyway, yeah. Send your things to the website. The second one was The Great Muppet Caper, which is considered by many the best Muppet film.
Do you consider it to be?
Later on, I'll go about my tier list.
Sorry. I don't want to jump the gun.
We're not going to go over that yet.
There seems to be a lot planned
that's coming a little bit later on. And then the Muppets Take Manhattan, and these were all quite popular. They were very popular during the time of its release. And after the completion of the Muppet Show, Henson continued to work on Muppet properties, and kind of just kept on doing what he'd been doing before. But he wanted something new, a new show. So he created Fraggle Rock.
Oh, a classic.
Have you heard of it?
Even I have heard of Fraggle Rock.
Have you heard of Fraggle Rock?
No.
Let me explain to you what Fraggle Rock is.
I'm so ready.
So basically, Fraggle Rock has this. You ever heard it? You ever seen it? Like it starts like da 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 da.
I swear to God, I have never
heard of Fraggle Rock. So it focuses on a couple groups of different creatures, but in particular the Fraggles, who are these group of like little creature guys. There is also the Doozers, the Gorgs, and the silliest creatures from outer space. Are you following me so far?
Yeah, I'm just having a look quickly at what might be a Fraggle Rock photo so I can understand what's going on.
So in 1983, they started this show, Fraggle Rock. And it was basically Henson's new project. It was these little creatures living underneath this cobbler's house.
Can I just stop you for a second? As I've looked up what these creatures look like, can I just ask you, on a scale of like 1 to 10, how much LSD did Jim Henson do like during this period?
I'm not sure like what Jim Henson's drug consumption was, but he like
it's got to be like at least something, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he did like Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal. If you look it up, that stuff's pretty
out there,
pretty odd. We might talk about that a bit, but yeah, probably a decent amount. Fraggle Rock, it was a bit wild. So there was this cobbler, and underneath lived the Fraggles, right. Alongside the Doozers. But there was also the Gorgs who lived on top in some other world, like beside them in this lush land. And there were these big hulking figures, the Gorgs.
So where are the Bagginses for this?
Bilbo, I don't think was in this one, unfortunately. Oh, shit. That's too bad.
That's a missed opportunity.
It's kind of disappointing that J.R.R. Tolkien didn't hop on this one before he died.
Didn't do a crossover with the Muppets?
He didn't do a Henson property. It could have been done, but, Tolkien obviously denied it. And then the Gorgs try to reach in and grab the Fraggles, and the Fraggles go, "Oh, no!" But yeah, that's basically it. The Fraggles and the Gorgs. And there's just silly screechers from outer space, whack, whack, like stuff, making noises like that. It's an interesting show. It's worth giving like one episode a watch. It's not my favorite. I'm a big Muppet Show guy. Yeah. It's just, it's not the same, in my opinion.
Have you seen all the Muppet Show, by the way?
I watched all the episodes. I watched a lot of it when I was a kid, for sure. But I don't think I've seen all of it. I've seen all the Muppet movies, for sure. Yeah. And I don't know if I've seen every episode. I was rewatching the Peter Sellers one last night, actually. It was pretty good.
I feel like it's one of those shows you just have to get it illegally, because I haven't seen it on like any...
It's on Disney Plus.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
You have to get it illegally, basically.
I mean, yeah, if you don't want to pay to the corporate entity that is
pay
Disney.
To the Nazi hierarchy that is Disney Corporation right now.
That's the classic.
Yeah.
Disney. Bob Chapek is in charge. He's.
I have no idea. No.
You don't know Bob Chapek?
Keep it going. Continue.
Okay. Anyway, so in 1984, another show started, Muppet Babies. And I don't know if you remember the babies trend of the 90s. Are you familiar? Lots of shows in this babies trend.
Baby Driver, Baby Boss.
It's Boss Baby, first of all, narrated by Sam Raimi and Alec Baldwin. No, not Sam Raimi, sorry. Tobey Maguire, the guy who did Spider-Man. He narrates it. And Alec Baldwin's the guy. But we're not going to talk about Boss Baby today. What I'm talking about is the baby trend, which is something that happened in the 90s. Shows like Yo Gabba. No, not Yo Gabba Gabba. What's the show? Shows like there were lots of shows that came. Oh yeah, there was Tiny Toons was one of them.
Sure.
And there was Yo Yogi was another one. You know Yogi Bear?
I do know Yogi Bear.
Yeah, it's Yo Yogi. They tried to make it cool. They put some raps in there. It was like, my name is Yogi Bear, and I'm here to say I'm a bear every day.
Another bear, another dog. Nice.
Anyways, yeah, so they kind of tried to market off that trend. I did not like Muppet Babies. I actually hated that trend of baby content. I thought it was dumb.
I'm glad I had your voice for it.
But Henson, I don't know, he decided to do this. And before his death, Henson even made plans to sell the Muppets to Disney and put them in their theme park so they'd have like kind of Muppet lands around there. But he unexpectedly died in 1990 from pneumonia, which was kind of weird because most people at the time thought pneumonia really couldn't kill people anymore because it unless they had like major health implications before.
Or you were doing like an obscene amount of drugs.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what happened. I just know he died of pneumonia. And they produced this show called The Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson in 1990. And of course, his legacy has lived on to this day.
Yes.
And after Henson's died, they've done, obviously, multiple productions. They did another Muppet show called Muppet Tonight in 1996, which was, instead of being like a Broadway variety show, it was like a TV show spinoff, is what they did.
Okay.
Which was very interesting. And it was, basically like a continuation of the Muppets. They featured guest stars again. Prince was on it.
Oh, sweet.
I don't know if you're familiar.
We love Prince.
Raspberry Beret.
Yep.
It's a good one. Yeah, so they did Muppet Christmas Carol was one that came out. Muppets Go to Space was a good one. Where this one gets a lot of hate, but what I like about it is the Muppets are living in a house and they're living together. And you get to see them interacting, which is was one of my favorite parts of the Muppets as a kid. Was just seeing the Muppets do their interactions, and I really enjoyed that. But that was pretty much a little bit about the Muppets after that. Muppet Space was quite good. I really enjoyed that. Lots of people hate it. Muppets Treasure Island.
Well, you can't forget the only movie of the Muppets that I saw, which is
The Muppets?
Which is The Muppets.
That's a great one. That's actually one of the things I think initially spurred my interest in the Muppets. And I rewatched that recently, actually yesterday before we did this show. And it still holds up, I think. But before that, Disney acquired the Muppets. They ended up actually acquiring it from Jane, Henson's spouse. And they decided they'd make their own Muppets videos. So they created Muppets Bohemian Rhapsody. Muppets sing Bohemian Rhapsody. Have you seen that video?
I have not seen that video.
If you have not seen the Muppets perform Bohemian Rhapsody, watch that after the show.
Okay.
Or stop the show now and watch that and put after the show. That's an important video.
Or go to www.deepcuts.fun and we'll have it up there.
We'll probably have it up there.
Yeah.
We've probably paid for the domain name.
Oh, yeah.
And we've probably have this website. It'll be up by the end of the show, by far. Sure.
There's merch, t-shirts, mugs.
Yeah. You can buy a picture of my face on Kermit's face as a Muppet. It's really good.
We have a traveling tattoo artist who will tattoo one of our faces on each one of your butt cheeks.
As a Muppet, though.
As a Muppet, yeah. For about $400, $500.
Yeah, it's a pretty reasonable price.
Yeah.
I was pretty happy. Yeah. John, our tattoo artist, we found him just kind of like sitting in a back alley. And we just picked him up.
You already had needles on him, so he was good to go.
Yeah, he was good. He just knows how to do it, and we trust him. But yeah, after Disney purchased the show, they started producing the Muppets content. They did a few music videos, and they released the Muppets Green album. So self-titled Muppets album. And you know how like Weezer does Blue album, White album.
Or maybe how the Beatles do the White album.
I'm a big Weezer fan.
And then Weezer did it like 40 years later or whatever.
But Weezer's first album was the Blue album. So clearly Weezer, I'm not saying they're better, they're definitely not better than the Beatles, but I do like Weezer a lot.
Yeah, except for every second album they make.
Except for they only have like 4 good albums that I like. But apart from Weezer, the Muppets made this Green album where they collaborated with OK Go on the first song.
Oh, those music video guys, right?
Yeah, I'm a big OK Go fan as well. And they did the Muppet Show theme song, but by OK Go. And multiple other artists collaborating on this album. And this was in preparation for the film that Andrew has seen, The Muppets. This is the only one he's seen. But that was a great film because it was kind of, the Muppets had retired and they were coming back. And it was kind of a return to form for the Muppets. It was a big hit. It was loved by a lot of people. I loved it. I know my brother loved it as a kid. I know my dad loved it as a kid. I know Andrew obviously loved it to death as a kid.
No.
And
I have some more to say about that whenever we're ready.
Okay, we'll go over Andrew. We'll have some arguments in a bit. Yeah, so there was that film, but it was quite good. But then the Muppets took a bit of a hiatus for a little bit. Then they came out with Muppets Most Wanted, which was after they become popular again from that movie. And what was actually, before we go there, what was interesting about the Muppets was it included a bunch of celebrity guest stars again, but like from our time. So there was Jim from The Office. The main character alongside the Muppet was that guy from How I Met Your Mother. No, I don't think so. It's the guy who's dating the girl, and he's the best friend of the main character.
I'll be honest, I have not done a How I Met Your Mother deep dive just yet.
I'll do that one day. I've watched the show. I watched all of it. I'm not the biggest fan.
I watched my sister watch the show, and I decided I didn't want to watch the show.
That's fair. Yeah, it's definitely a long haul. To all the viewers out there, How I Met Your Mother, you'll get hooked, but I don't think it's really worth the entire watch for the finale and stuff. It wasn't worth it.
How I Met Your Mother, by the way, is available for streaming at www.deepcuts.fun.
Yeah, we've created a legal video streaming website.
Yeah.
That's just kind of what we do around here. we're interested in legal enterprises.
Yeah.
But Muppets Most Wanted came out after this. I was saying, yeah, kind of segueing away from those guest stars, but Muppets Most Wanted came out, had Ricky Gervais as the bad guy. His name was Bad Guy, French. His last name was Bad Guy.
Great.
And
classic.
There were lots of good moments in that one. I really liked, do you know Sam the Eagle, the American Eagle?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you remember
blue guy, right?
He was working as like this Interpol officer. He was like a police officer from the United States with a French Interpol officer.
Oh, I might have watched this movie.
Yeah, no, it was quite good. It's basically it's like Tina Fey's in it. They go to like the Gulag in Russia. Sorry, yeah, I should explain the movie a bit more before I talk about the Gulag.
Sorry, yeah.
But it's basically the Muppets going on tour, and there's an imposter Kermit, a guy who looks like Kermit, but has a mole, a black mole.
I totally have seen this movie. It's a drug trip.
You've seen this one?
Yeah, start to finish. It's just tremendous.
Great. Okay, so we can talk about this too.
I have not seen enough of it to like be worthy of comment, but like I've never seen it like at least 5 years ago.
And it's great. It is great. We'll talk about your opinions in a bit, but it is great. That Muppet movie, yeah, it's really something special. Basically, yeah, Muppets go to another country. They're exploring. They're doing shows in lots of different places, and then they're running into some issues. And then this frog comes along, whose name is Constantine, and he takes over Kermit's thing. And then Kermit's framed as him. He puts like a fake black mole on Kermit. Kermit goes to the gulag, and at the end, Kermit marries Miss Piggy. Sorry, spoilers. The movie came out a long time ago. You should have seen it already. Even though I know I'm just trying to introduce you all to Muppets.
The movie is available for streaming at www.deepcuts.fun.
Thank you, Andrew. And yeah, that's pretty much where the Muppets are now. They've had a bit of a hiatus. They actually had an ABC show, which was like them, and then they would like get drunk in episodes. The Muppets would like get drunk.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's okay. That was part of my. Cause I did a little bit of a dive, but the dive that I did into was under Henson Alternative.
Okay.
And so Henson Alternative was like his other production company that he set up specifically for like R-rated and nasty ass Muppets business.
Yeah.
And so that Henson Alternative was like either produced or was the inspiration for that like recent kind of risque Muppet show. And it was also the one that produced that like Muppet Happy Time Murders.
Yeah.
Where there's like a Muppet sex scene and a whole bunch of nasty ass garbage.
It's not a very good movie, that movie, The Muppets Happy Time. That's why we're not really talking about it. I didn't bring it.
But the shock value was there, so...
The shock value was there. I don't know if Henson would be proud of it, but...
I mean, the man named an episode Sex and Violence, so, like...
He also did great.
He's down with his sickness.
He helped with The Dark Crystal, which is not my favorite movie. It's a bit odd. You ever seen The Dark Crystal? I
have not, actually. I think I need to. I've been told to see it, like, a couple times.
I don't know if it's something. You probably have to see it, but you might not enjoy it.
I'll be honest, I have not enjoyed a Henson movie that much. Ever.
We'll talk about your opinions on Henson right after we finish. We're about at the end of the history. I guess I'll just say now, that last Muppet movie was a bit of a box office failure. It didn't do too well. But, so they kind of put it on hiatus for a while, the Muppets. And they did that ABC show, which was the Muppets, like, in a more weird setting where they were, like, getting drunk. It was confusing. The Swedish Chef, like, rapped in one episode, and I liked that, because he got drunk and he started rapping. It was something I never thought I'd see. The Swedish Chef rap. Could you imagine it?
I kind of want to look this up right now.
We'll watch it. When we take a break out, I think we'll watch that. There's a few things you should watch when we take a break. Because we'll do that after we finish this deep dive into the history. And so there was that ABC show, which was very interesting. And then we ended up moving on to where the Muppets are now. They hadn't really done too much. They did this Muppets Now show on Disney+, which was okay. It wasn't really... I don't think it was meant to be a long-standing show. It was just kind of shorts. And I thought it was okay. And then recently they did the Muppets Haunted Mansion, which I really liked. Because I'm a big Disneyland fan, Disney Parks fan. I know a lot about deep cuts from the Disney parks. And they did it with the Haunted Mansion. So the Haunted Mansion, one of the best rides at Disneyland. It's got a lot of nooks and crannies to explore.
Got a lot of deep dives.
You got a lot of deep dives we could do there. I don't think Andrew knows much about Disneyland, so that could be good.
I'm not privileged enough to know much about Disneyland.
I'm sorry. I haven't been in a long time either. Anyway. It's not that I go, I just research it on the side. It's not like I go every day.
Oh, on my weekly visit to Disneyland, I observed another nook and another cranny to write about.
I'm such a privileged young man.
Child of wealth.
It's me. But, moving on. The Muppets basically were in that special, and it was Gonzo going to the Haunted Mansion with Pepe. And then Pepe, he got hunted by this, like, wife... Yeah, but he got hunted by this husband killer. So marries, kills the husband. Classic plot, you know? That's a classic, right? And yeah, Gonzo, he had to spend the night in the house, and that was his like Halloween thing. But when you went to the house, they were doing all this like references to the Muppets, and there was Will Arnett was in that, a la BoJack Horseman.
I love Will Arnett.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, he's great. A la BoJack Horseman, a la Arrested Development. I really liked his appearance, and it was very interesting. They got like the Muppets to do certain characters from the Haunted Mansion, which I knew and loved, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good. I was never expecting them to do that. It was very interesting. But I think that pretty much brings us to the Muppet history up to now. We haven't really talked about Labyrinth or the Dark Crystal or Henson's help on other predictions, but we might bring that up in a bit. I think we're going to take a break for a little bit now, though.
All right, let's take a break. All right, so, Luca, I want you to tell me about what the actual Muppet characters are. Tell me about some of the characters.
You want me to tell you about the characters?
Yes, I do.
Every character.
No, I do not.
Every single Muppet. Here we go.
Tell me about your favorite characters and nothing more.
All right. Are you familiar with Kermit, Andrew?
Yes, he is the pig, right?
It makes me so sad. You think that. I know you don't think that. I know you're just trying to tease me, but Kermit's I was like, "Hey everyone, it's me." Ah! That's Kermit.
Yeah, okay.
He yells a lot. He's the host, basically.
He's the frog, right?
Do you have an opinion on Kermit? Do you like Kermit?
He's great in the vines, man.
He is great in the vines. Then we get to Miss Piggy. What's your opinion on Miss Piggy?
I'll be honest. She's a little bit intimidating.
She is. She's a lot. She's voiced by Frank Oz, actually. The same guy who's Yoda. And Fozzie Bear.
Cool.
Yeah, and she goes like, "Hi!" And she gets like, "Hey, it's like, Kermit, oh my god!"
Yeah, she's a lot to handle.
She's a lot. And then there's Fozzie, who is basically the comedian Muppet who isn't very talented at comedy.
I was going to say, the only supposedly funny character on the Muppets is not that funny.
Yeah, he's the comedian. He goes like, "Waka waka." He was like, "Hey, what's the difference?" He's like kind of like the Jerry Seinfeld of the Muppets.
Except he's trying not.
Except he's trying, yeah. Now, Gonzo, are you familiar with the great Gonzo?
I think so. This is bringing back a lot of memories now of the two Muppet movies that I saw.
Yeah, Gonzo is basically this guy. He's a daredevil. He's ready to attack.
Okay, yeah.
And
Set to attack.
He doesn't always do incredibly well. He's also in love with this chicken named Henrietta.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird.
Wait, doesn't the chicken not speak English?
No, the chicken is not actually it's just a chicken.
So that's just bestiality.
Yeah, in some respects, yes. But
like the man just
also Gonzo is actually from space, as we learn Muppets from space, which is talking about Gonzo's heritage.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a lot to take in. There's Ralph the piano dog. He's one of the first Muppets. He played the piano a lot. There's Scooter, the manager of the Muppets, and he's the nephew of the theater owner in the Muppets. And he's always like, "On in 3, Kermit."
Okay.
He's like an orange Muppet. There's Animal, your favorite.
I do like Animal.
And he's always like, "Rah!"
He plays the drums.
Yeah, he's great. There's Pepe the King Prawn. And, he's into the ladies.
He's a rapist.
He's got four arms.
Why are both the creepy French characters in pop culture named Pepe? Like I say, it's like Pepe Le Pew and Pepe the French Prawn, and they're both like. Is it just racism against French people? Is that what it is?
Pepe Le Pew got canceled, though, so they don't put him in the Looney Tunes.
Yeah, and they should do the same with Pepe the Prawn. Like I think it's just racism.
I think Pepe the Prawn is like less rapey though, because like Pepe Le Pew would be like, like say, "Well, hello, little girl."
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Yeah, it's a classic.
I think it's just racist.
Yeah, and then there's, I guess, moving on, this Rizzo the Rat. Rizzo the Rat.
Any relation to Lizzo?
To Lizzo? No.
Okay.
Unfortunately. But another interesting fact about Rizzo is that he was good friends with Pepe in the show, but his puppeteer was actually fired from the Muppets, so he doesn't appear anymore on the show. Because the puppeteer was the only person who ever puppeted him, puppet mastered him.
Patted, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he was fired. I don't know the whole story, but that was just an interesting take. There's Walter in the Muppets. He's the whistling guy you were talking about.
I have a lot to say about Walter.
We can talk about it now. What do we have to say about Walter?
Okay, so this is really why I don't like the movie. Why the fuck is whistling considered a talent? Like, anybody can whistle.
But he's a really good whistler.
Like, he steps on the stage like, "Don't worry, guys, I have a talent," or however his voice sounds. And he just starts, like, whistling. Like, and they're like, "Oh my god, he saved the day." They could have gotten a 4-year-old child to step up and whistle a song. And it would have been like it would have been more impactful because a child is more impressive than a grown ass puppet, I guess.
And I don't think you understand.
Whistling.
What happened was there was this huge thing. He wanted to become a Muppet. He wanted to be a Muppet. And he was segueing the whole movie. He met Kermit. He became part of the show. But he was stage fright. He didn't know what his talent was.
He didn't have any talent.
He didn't know what his talent was. So he ran away. And then down went his friend, the guy from How I Met Your Mother, was like, what are you going to do, man? His brother. Another weird part of the movie, his brother's a human and he's a Muppet.
Okay, we need to have like some answers from Jim Henson's corpse. Like, dig that shit up and figure out.
Well, Jim Henson was like, didn't make this one.
I know, but like, I want to know what the biology is like.
Yeah, we don't really know how that works.
I want some deep Muppet lore as to like how that.
That would be good. Yeah, DMS if you have any.
www.deepcuts.fun. Send us a message.
Just give us there. We got a direct message going. That's Walter. Then there's one of my favorite acts, Dr. Teeth in the Electric Mayhem. Now, Dr. Teeth is the leader, and he's based on Dr. John. Are you familiar with Dr. John?
I am not.
Okay, it's a song. I don't know if you know that, but
I do not know that.
the wrong place, wrong time.
Please continue. Yeah.
Anyway, good music artist. He's based on that. But the weird thing about him, he's like one of the ones that has chompers. He's got big white teeth.
Hence the name Dr. Teeth.
It's a bit weird. He's the lead singer. He plays the keyboard. It is also Animal, of course.
Of course.
There's Janice, the bass player, who's always like, hey, man, Woodstock.
Wait, Janice is a man?
No, Janice is a woman. She's the bass player.
Okay.
Like, hey.
Why would they make her the singer? Like Janice Joplin, you know?
Well, I think actually, no, that might have been a thing, but no, Dr. Teeth is the singer. There's Zoot. He plays saxophone. He doesn't really have any defining characteristics.
Plays saxophone.
Yeah, you know, I don't know, those saxophone players.
Losers.
I don't know about that. There's Floyd Pepper on guitar, and he's like the laid-back lead guitarist. Yeah, he's just chilling out. And later on, there was Lips, who was added the trumpet. Lips doesn't have any defining characteristics.
Lips, presumably.
Yeah. All right, so we also got Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker. I think you're probably familiar with them.
Yes, that was a middle school classic.
They're good. I like them a lot because they play off of each other really well. Bunsen, Honeydew's like, hey, yeah, Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew is always like, hello, Beaker. And Beaker's like, and it's pretty much their interactions. They do their science experiments. Sam Eagle is another one I like. He's always like, hello, America.
Oh, yeah.
He's a mix between Uncle Sam and Richard Nixon. You know, he's like a bit of that mix from that.
Except also an eagle and also blue.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And there's Statler and Waldorf, who are the two old men who always make fun of them. Are like, hey, the Muppets are bad. Yeah. You know them? That was the two guys?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. The Swedish Chef, a classic. They go, there's a chicken who Ron was in love with named Camilla the chicken.
Yeah.
There's Bobo the bear. He's a big hulking bear guy. Not much to say about him.
No relation to Fuzzy.
No. There's Uncle Deadly, who's
an assassin, presumably.
He's like the dragon. He's like, I have a British accent. That doesn't mean I'm evil.
Oh, Uncle Dudley.
Deadly. Yeah.
Not Dudley.
Yeah.
Why is he deadly?
Because he's a bit deadly of a guy.
Does he kill people?
He's portrayed as a bad guy in the Muppets one you saw, but
okay.
He ends up saving the day. So it's kind of because he's like, I don't want my last name Deadly to mean anything.
But he kills people.
Well, no, I don't.
Okay.
That's not confirmed.
Next.
There's Beauregard, the janitor. Not much to say about him. He's a bit like lost. There's Constantine I talked about, Muppet with the mole, looks like Kermit.
Yep.
Crazy Harry, he's on the explosions, and he's always ready. He's always like,
okay, yep.
You know that one?
Sure, yes.
New Zealand throws fish.
Does he live in New Zealand?
No,
okay.
But he throws fish.
Okay.
There's Limp Heartthrob. He's like a handsome pig.
He's a pig.
He's a handsome pig.
He's a pig.
He's a handsome pig.
Okay.
Yeah. Marvin Scruggs, he's like an old. He's like he smacks heads as a drummer. They make noises.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Pops is an elderly janitor guy. There's Robin, who's Kermit's nephew, and he sings a song halfway up the stairs. You ever know?
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I try.
There's
Sweetums, who's a massive hulking hairy ogre. He's like the Muppets' #1 fan. That's how I can think about him.
Okay.
And I like that guy a lot. That's the main ones. There's also like penguins who are always around. And
I remember the penguins.
they're kind of like Gonzo's like helpers in some ways a lot of the time. There's the Whatnots, who are just the random Muppets that are like interchangeable. Like they change the puppet skin up all the time. Fun fact: Scooter, New Zealand, and Scrubs, they all started as Whatnots, and then they eventually just became characters.
Look where they are now.
And look what now they're full-fledged, things. And those Whatnots, they're called Anything Muppets on Sesame Street.
So, kids at home, you too, if you're a whatnot or a loser, you too could one day become a Grover or a real Muppet whose names I actually forgot.
It's okay.
Like 20 seconds.
You're not the biggest Muppet fan, but we're trying to educate you.
Okay, yeah. I feel educated.
Anyway, what I consider Muppets and Sesame Street, I'd say are Ernie, Bert, Oscar, Grover, Cookie Monster, and Big Bird. Because they were all directly created by Henson.
Roger that.
Yeah.
So Count Dracula, my favorite Muppet, is not actually a Muppet.
I'm not entirely sure he was created by, but Oz did puppet master him, which was quite interesting. I'm not sure who he was created by, though. That's a good question. But those are the ones I can think of that I consider Muppets. Elmo, once again, do not consider him a Muppet. He first was introduced in the 80s, long after Henson had left.
Bastard.
Yeah. But what was interesting was they would put Kermit and Ralph in Muppets as well. I know the Muppets, Sesame Street originally. So they started there and they moved on. They started way early. But I want to know what your opinions are on these Muppet movies now, Andrew. We've waited long enough. It's time for you to go off.
The final section is going to be me bitching, basically. So the one thing that I already raised about the Muppets 2011 release that I think is garbage is the idea that whistling is considered a skill. So you have always other people with like genuine skills, like Animal, my man, can play the drums. Foz Bear can like attempt to do comedy. And this guy who's like afraid this entire movie because he thinks he doesn't have a skill proves himself right when the only skill that he has is putting his lips really close together and blowing air through them. Like you can whistle easy as shit. You can do it well. Like I can do it well. I'm not a musical person. It's just stupid that this man thinks that's his skill. And then the other thing is, I just got so confused halfway through because he was like, "Am I a Muppet or am I?" It was like a 5-minute, I assume 10-minute long musical number where he's asking himself if he's a Muppet or if he's a man. So the first thing that's wrong with that is it stuck in my head for like 4 years after that, and it's probably gonna be stuck in my head tonight when he's like trying to say, "Am I a Muppet? Am I a man?" And I hated that. And the other thing was, he turned into a man at one point, and I was out like, is there the possibility that he can turn into a man? Is that something that Muppets can do?
That man was actually Sheldon from
yeah, I know. That was the other problem. I wasn't sure about that, but thank you for confirming. Yeah. Is that something that Muppets can do? Like,
well, the thing was, the song was about... Okay, you gotta understand. The song was about him and his brother. He's a Muppet. His brother's a person. And they're both... the brother's not spending enough time with his girlfriend. He's spending too much time with the Muppets. He's asking himself, am I a Muppet or am I a man? Do I want to have this girlfriend?
His brother was thinking that?
No. Yeah, his brother, the How I Met Your Mother guy.
Okay, then where does Sheldon come in? Is he a Muppet or a man?
Sheldon's coming in later. And then there's also Walter, who's singing and considering, am I a Muppet or am I a man, right? Am I a Muppet or am I a man with my brother?
Okay,
who's also a man?
But like, in what world could he be a man? Because the man's made of felt. Like,
I don't know. The song, it's more of what's on the inside than what's on the outside when we talk about this.
So it's like a sexuality kind of thing.
It really is.
Okay, the second movie that I watched is Muppets Most Wanted. And honestly, I can't remember much about that other than like a scene in which Miss Piggy was like a battle axe and kind of terrified me. Another one in which like a glorious Russian Kermit the Frog had like a mole.
Yeah, that's pretty much the movie. I think you explained it. There's also good stuff. I like Sam the Eagle being with the Angel Police officer. I thought it was pretty funny.
That was good. I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed the movie in summer. I rewatched it like a year ago, and I really enjoyed it. I don't think it deserves all the hate it got. It might not be the best one, but it was good. I guess we get into my ranking of the Muppet movies.
Oh yeah, let's do a quick ranking to finish it off.
And then we'll do that final ending. But I think if I had to rank them, I'd say the best one is the original The Muppet movie.
Okay, yeah.
With a pretty deep emotional connection. Second, I'd go Great Muppet Caper.
Yeah.
Third, Muppets Take Manhattan. So these are all the original three, actually, in order of their release. Then I'd do The Muppets, the 2011 release. Then
The one that I saw.
Yeah, Muppets Christmas Carol is very good. I put it there.
Oh, I think I saw that one as well.
Oh, well,
Did I?
I don't know. You only know. I don't know.
I think I did. I did.
So number 5, I put Muppet Christmas Carol. Number 6, I put Muppet Treasure Island. And then I think last I'd probably put Muppets Most Wanted. Oh, no, I put Muppets in Space, and then I put Muppets Most Wanted. Actually, I put Muppets in Space way higher up. I put Muppets in Space probably like 1, 2, or 3. And
Really?
that's a hot take because lots of people hate that movie. And it bombed. But I like the interactions Muppets had.
That's like me with Treasure Planet.
I like Treasure Planet.
Treasure Planet's
That's great.
I think it's top 3 Disney movies for me.
It's quite good. I don't know if it's top 3, but it's definitely a good movie. And I guess if you want to explore the Muppets, I'd say start with maybe the 2011 movie or one of the original movies.
Yeah, so you should probably start with one of the first ones.
Yeah.
I need to start with one of the first ones.
Yeah, if Andrew's going to watch all the Muppets movies, which I assume he's going to do directly after we do
Immediately,
this.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd assume. I also watched, the Swedish Chef Rapping. That was pretty good.
That was enjoyable.
Yeah,
Having watched it during the break, it was great.
It was quite good. And the Bohemian Rhapsody thing's pretty funny. The OK Go music video with the Muppets is quite good. Just familiarize yourself with Muppets. Pretty much everything is on Disney Plus. Watch the original Muppet Show, but go to guest stars you like to start off with. So if you like Peter Sellers, Steve Martin, there's a Star Wars episode where all the Star Wars cast comes on. If you like any of those, go there and just explore what you like in the Muppets to kind of gain yourself. Don't watch the Fraggles first. I like the Fraggles, but it's a bit confusing. But ultimately, yeah, I think that's about it with the Muppets. Did you learn a lot today, Andrew?
Look, I learned so much about the Muppets, and I still feel justified in my belief that whistling is a bullshit skill.
I mean, I'd have to disagree with Andrew there because of the climax and heart I felt for Walter in that story and that beautiful ending.
Screw Walter.
And where they got the money, but I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the ending. And I'm pretty happy with the ending of this podcast, too. I think we've discussed everything you wanted to, and I think that's a wrap. What do you think, Andrew?
I think that's a wrap. Folks, if you want to hear more, go to, Luca?
www.
The name of our podcast.
The name of our... Oh, sorry. If you want to hear more, we're obviously the Deep Cuts podcast.
Yeah.
We'll be doing this every once in a while. We're not quite sure what our schedule is going to be, but we'll be just diving into different topics here and there, different subject matter. Hopefully we'll do something where Andrew knows more than me about a topic.
I think we're thinking maybe Lord of the Rings next time.
That would be good. I think we both know a decent amount about that. So we would have a bit more back and forth. But I think that's our first episode. Thanks to Fleece for the intro. You did a good job on that one. Great man. Love Fleece. He's got a new album coming out, I believe, with some collabs from other artists.
I'm excited for that. There is some talent on that album.
It's going to be good. I'm really excited for it. Thank you, Fleece, again. And I think that's a wrap. What do you think, Andrew?
I think that's a wrap.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. We'll see you next time, guys.
Boy.